Alrighty, so welcome everyone. We'll continue to let people in as they come in, but welcome everyone to our Student Success Series, where we are partnering alumni. We're bringing alumni together, faculty and students together on a myriad of topics throughout the academic year. My name is Amanda Decker, and I oversee alumni relations at the USC Suzanne Dworak-Peck School of Social Work. And I'm joined here by my colleague, Josh Watson. Dr. Watson, if you want to just take a moment, just introduce yourself.
Sure, yeah. Hello, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you all so much for being here. I serve as the Assistant Dean of Student Affairs here at the Suzanne Dworak-Peck School of Social Work. This is our very first in the series, so be on the lookout. It's a monthly series, so again, appreciate you all being here. Share with your colleagues and friends and be on the lookout for future sessions.
Yeah. So as Dr. Watson said, this is a monthly series where we bring alumni, such as many on our panel today, back to talk on various topics. And so today is just meant to welcome you to the profession of social work, talk about various experiences that folks have had, how to get involved with organizations like NASW California or other NASW chapters within the United States, and kind of just career trajectory and, things like that. So I am going to just have our panel actually introduce themselves one by one. So I will go ahead and prompt everyone. But Dr. Wiley, I would love for you to introduce yourself to our audience tonight.
Good evening. I'm June Wiley, and I am the MSW Program Chair. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I have been with the school now for 11 years, having started as the Program Director for our Virtual Academic Center. I have also taught in our doctorate program for several years, and now I am, as I mentioned, the MSW Program Chair, which means that my responsibilities include oversight for scheduling, working with Dr. Josh Watson around student concerns, working with the faculty, and also working with a very important body that's external to the school, and that's the Council on Social Work Education, which is the accrediting body for schools of social work to ensure that your education is very much meeting your needs as a student, as well as meeting the requirements of the profession, and that we are ensuring that you're going to be a competent social worker upon graduation, and that our courses are able to provide you with the skills necessary in order to do that. So I'm really glad to be here with you this evening, and I'll turn it back to Amanda.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'd like to now add in and bring on Michelle Wilson. Michelle is a 2001 graduate. Michelle, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Thanks, Amanda. Hey, everyone. It's really good to be with you tonight. I am Zooming to you from Atlanta, Georgia, where I transplanted myself after I graduated from SC in 2001. As Amanda mentioned, just really quickly, a lot of people ask me, how did you go from LA to Atlanta? That is because of a really great opportunity that I'm happy to chat with you more about later that I had while at SC to apply for a federal fellowship, which is how I came to Atlanta. I work for the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. You can imagine that we have kind of been in the news lately, thanks to several pandemics that are abounding. But currently, I serve as a senior advisor at CDC. I, for the last 20 years, have worked in the policy arena, and I currently run Georgia relations for CDC. But I'm really excited to be here, and I'm really happy to be with some alums and to welcome some new social workers into the profession, and just happy to chat and answer any questions, and look forward to hanging out with y'all over the next while. So thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I'd next like to introduce 2015 grad Elita Sanchez. Elita, if you want to share a few things about yourself.
Thank you, Amanda. Yes, so I was actually part of student org with Dr. Watson. It was very pleasant to see you after, so many years. It feels like yesterday. My current position is I work for Santa Ana Unified School District. I am in the field of education, and I do not do clinical work in a school setting. I'm actually the McKinney-Vento district liaison. So as you can imagine, with the pandemic for our McKinney-Vento homeless population, we've been very busy trying to meet the needs and remove barriers, any type of barrier, technology being one of the big ones right now, because everybody's trying to come back or be in a hybrid setting. So that's my role. And prior to joining the MSW program, I was already in education. So it was just a transition, getting my master's degree and then seeing things from a policy and systems perspectives in school settings.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Elita. And Jolene Wee, would you please introduce yourself for our audience?
I would love to. I feel like a little bit of an imposter here because I'm not an alum of USC. I actually went to the other school in Los Angeles. I'm a graduate of UCLA's program in 2011, but see, I'm wearing my Trojan red shirt for you all because I know my environment. So happy to be here with you all. Welcome to the profession. My name is Jolene Hui. I am the Director of Membership for NASW California chapter. So I oversee membership activities, recruitment, and retention for all of our social work members in California. I also am adjunct field faculty at Cal State Dominguez Hills. I teach the first year seminar, which is going to be happening tonight. So it's not late for me. I'm going to be going till 8:15. And I also have a small private practice in Long Beach to keep up those clinical skills. Additionally, I am a commissioner in the city of Long Beach. I'm the vice chair of the Homeless Services Advisory Committee. So involved in that level as well. Prior to my work at NASW, I was with LA County Department of Mental Health. I was actually a Cal SWEC mental health stipend recipient when they used to have those. I worked in the jails in Twin Towers Correctional Facility and also Men's Central Jail. And then additionally an outpatient clinic before I started my work with NASW.
Great. Thank you so much and welcome everyone. And thank you to our panelists for giving us just a little quick tidbits and about yourself. I'd love to we have a lot of questions. And if you guys have questions in the chat, please feel free to put them in the chat. This is relatively informal. So if there's something in the chat or you want to come on camera, we'd love to have you come on camera. We'd love to have you interact. Because what a lot of, I like to tell our students and our alums, it's all about the networking. And so use this opportunity to network with our panelists tonight so you can start those skills now as you're entering your MSW journey. So Professor Wiley, everyone here is likely a new grad or not a new grad, but a new student. It seems a little bit overwhelming, kind of, as this first few weeks of the semester, kind of what are your tips, as they're navigating this journey for kind of setting themselves up for success, whether it be networking, their schoolwork, their studies?
Okay, sure. First of all, before we talk about networking or working with your instructors, what I'd really encourage you to do is to have that belief, that sense of confidence in your ability to do the work. I think sometimes our mindsets, if they are not ones in which we're positive, it can possibly impair our ability to do as well as we could. So I really encourage you to believe in yourself, know that you can do the work. And then once you have that mindset and you believe that, and you really believe that, also reach out to your instructors. Don't be afraid to reach out to your instructors. We are all here to help you succeed. And people go into teaching oftentimes because they have a research interest and they want to explore that. But I think an equally important reason why people teach is because they really enjoy the interaction with others. So with students, wanting to help students, wanting to help you grow. It's nothing but a win-win situation when you work with your instructor, asking questions, learning more about their interest, really taking the time to say, can you assist me in terms of my development? What do you suggest that I do additionally to strengthen my abilities? So it's reaching out to your instructor, developing that relationship, and knowing that that's a key component of your success. And then, as Amanda mentioned, also in terms of networking with other, your peers in your classes. While you're all students, another important thing to keep in mind is that a number of you are coming with very varied backgrounds. So you have expertise that you bring to the classroom that can be beneficial to one another when you're looking at the coursework, when you're thinking about ways to study, ways to move ahead in terms of your learning. So reach out to one another. And then again, take advantage of all the resources, and they are just plentiful at USC. You cannot overlook the fact that you have top-notch instructors, as I mentioned, but the resources here in terms of the different departments, the library resources, looking at student organizations that can be beneficial in terms of helping you, again, to network and feel very comfortable in the setting. So there's a variety of ways to ensure that you're successful. And again, I want to point out that number one is believing in yourself, and then moving through the other areas so that you really feel that you're a part of the community, because we want you here and we want you to succeed.
Thank you so much. Michelle, Elita, and Jolene, as you look back, as a former MSW student, can you share, one piece of advice that you would share to, like, say, yourself as you look back that our students could benefit from today? And I'll go to Michelle first.
Yes, ma'am. I was thinking about this question, if I could go back to, like, this is gonna sound really weird, 1999. I would tell my MSW self back then, say yes to more opportunities when they come up, even if they don't seem like they're an opportunity that's like wired for you. And I think this kind of dovetails a little bit with what Dr. Wiley was talking about. Like, you have made it to, like, the School of Social Work. Like, people believe in you, like, you are equipped to, like, run the race of getting an MSW, and there are going to be opportunities afforded to you that you're going to look at and be like, this is an amazing opportunity, and things are going to come to you and you're going to be like, no way, not with a 10-foot pole. When those no way, not with a 10-foot pole come to you, like, I really want to encourage you to, like, take a pause and really think about taking that opportunity, because it's those types of opportunities that could give you a tremendous new door to walk through, to give you so much new skills, experience, and, like, maybe change the trajectory of your career. And if you don't take that opportunity, you're not going to know. So that would be my one thing that I would tell myself back in 1999.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Elita, how about you?
I think I'm going to echo the words of Michelle. Often we find ourselves thinking, no, that's not the discipline that I'm interested in, or no, that's not in my year, it was SCOPA, that's not health, that's not mental health. Like, you try to, like, subcategorize. We know that social work is multifaceted, multidisciplinary, and it's one of those career paths that you're going to be working with folks in so many different areas. So absolutely, I think that you can never underestimate yourself in learning. I think as a social worker, you're already in a position where you are able to work with so many different types of people in different settings. So put yourself in a learning position, something, that's not going to be your comfort zone. For me, I think I can relate with Michelle in the sense that I wanted policy. I was always interested in policy or education. And so I was placed in a second year internship and I was very intimidated. And so my advice to myself would be preparation and flexibility. Just know that there's going to be challenges. Things are going to come at you, but the more flexible and open-minded you are to approaching those hurdles, I think that that's going to help you. And ask for help. Ask for help early on. I think I should have asked for help when I was really struggling, and I think I was hesitant, but that's part of having confidence as a social worker. As you get your MSW, as you get your LCSW, you're going to be confiding and working with other partners. It can be your supervisor, it can be another peer in the field, and you're going to be checking with each other. And so that's going to be essential. So start practicing that, asking for help and building on with each other.
Great. Jolene, how about you?
It's hard to go last. You all have said such wonderful things. And I was thinking the whole time, just sort of the same thing that Michelle and Elita were saying, be open to new opportunities. When I started at UCLA, when I applied to go to grad school, I was very specific in what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a sex therapist. I knew that. I was like, this is what I want to do. My life has led me to this place. This is what I want to do. And I told you what I'm doing now. So you see, be open to new opportunities. When I was placed my first year, I ended up being placed in Skid Row in downtown Los Angeles. I was working with Lamp Community, an agency. At the time, when I was in school, they're now called something else. Completely different than, of course, what I had wanted to do, but that opened my eyes to all the different opportunities that I could have in mental health. So from there, I went and worked with the incarcerated population, and it's just really important to be open to these experiences because, like Alita was saying, you might find that what you wanted to do is actually not what you want to do. So be open. And also, even if you're not having the greatest experience in your field, say, you're still learning. Negative experience it's still a learning process for you. You're still learning something. I think what I would tell myself is network more, because once I started to network, once I got out of school and I started to network, I was able to gain more opportunities. So start now while you're in school, make those connections, interact with NASW members, go to those functions, and it will really benefit you in your career.
That is a perfect segue, Jolene. And instead of last, I'm going to have you go first. Can you provide an example of how maybe networking has helped you in your career path?
I like to say that every position I've gotten is because of NASW. So my job with the county, while I was a mental health stipend recipient, one of my mentors in school was very close with DMH, and she wrote me a reference letter. She was also an NASW leader. My teaching position, I've been teaching at Cal State Dominguez Hills since 2015, and I graduated in 2011. So really that wasn't that much time between graduation and teaching that I got that teaching position because of my work with NASW, because I was going out, presenting, interacting with faculty and students and the community. So I got that position that way. It's just given me a lot of opportunities to network, to meet people. I sit on advisory boards because of that. I got my commissioner role. So it's just really important.
Great. Dr. Wiley, Michelle, or Elita, can you share an example of maybe where networking has helped you in your career?
I can jump in. I think that because of networking, I have the positions that I I've had since I graduated. I graduated in 2015. I actually took a month off and went to Colombia for a little mental break. But while I was over there, I was messaging with professors from all over the place. I actually signed up for NASW early on as a student so that I can get the discount. And while I was connected, I started really building those networking cohorts of like, this is where I want to do, this is where I don't see myself. And so I started working with a professor at Cal State Long Beach. And when I returned, I started working as a community school director. And that was like a door opener for me. Community schools model, it's a federal model. And so I was able to sit in tables and have conversations with people across the nation. And so that position led to my next position, and this position led to other conversations. LinkedIn was also huge. Once you have built that relationship with folks and you start adding them, you start realizing that it's a web of connections. And so somebody will tell you, oh, I know that person. And so if you're interested in a position, then you can send them a message and say, hey, I noticed that you know so-and-so. Of course, letting them know that you're going to reach out. I think I transitioned from education to institutions. I also worked at Santa Ana Jail as an instructional assistant, doing like with the transgender population. And then from there, I went to work back at my district. And so I started taking positions, even if they were not full-time positions, as I was holding a full-time position. At that time, I didn't have children. So it was just very easy to just move around and not have other responsibilities. So I went from there to start working at Cal State Long Beach, and that led to other opportunities. And so Santa Ana Unified School District then heard of me, that I was working with the TAY population, so invited me for an interview. So that's one way that you could really expose yourself and just explore and be honest. Put yourself out there and say that you are in an exploratory period. You're a student, you want to learn. And I did a few informational interviews with folks. It didn't mean that I wanted them as mentors. It didn't mean that I was going to work for them. It just meant I wanted to learn what the position was, especially if they were MSWs themselves.
I think I'll just chime in really quick. We do have social workers at CDC, but some of the positions that I have specifically worked in since I've been here have been more in kind of what I'm going to call the non-traditional social work setting. I think a lot of people think of social work as like in the clinical setting. When I was at SC, it was called the COPA track, which was more obviously in the community org policy and administration track. But one of the things that networking has really benefited me from over the years has been how to kind of build out my skill sets in areas because of where I work. Like I have a minor in like epidemiology, but that's not my strong suit. How to translate science into a way that, my grandma can understand it. So learning from people in other professions, like I feel like that is a very intricate part of networking that we can all take value from and we can all contribute to. Another thing too is like, I think using big public health emergencies or any type of emergency, like we all experience them, knowing people who are in your network and who does what, so we can pull together as a community. So knowing who, does frontline emergency response, knowing who, runs your local community food bank, knowing, I think that's a unique skill that we as social workers, we're kind of like the soul of the community, knowing how do we quickly pull resources from our community together in times of need. I think that's something that's really unique in the broader networking sphere, in addition to, some of the core bread and butter when we say networking, what we think of a lot of the times.
Thank you, Michelle. Professor Wiley, when a student is trying to, they're looking to network, and they might want to find a mentor to guide them through their journey, their career journey. What are some ways they can go about identifying a mentor, whether they're a current, whether they're a student or early on in their career?
I think it's critical to become aware, of course, of the person's background and your interest, and how you can then meld those two together to see if it's an opportunity for you to gain knowledge and the support of someone who's in an area that you're interested in. I think it's also really important, however, not to limit the mentor to someone whose interest very closely aligns with yours. I think an effective mentor can also be a person who has certain abilities that maybe you don't see within yourself, or you'd like to enhance those abilities, and you recognize that within that person. So the person has the ability possibly to, taking something rather innocuous, maybe be more of an assertive leader, someone who's been very successful in certain realms, that you'd like to develop that about yourself as well. Because what I think can happen in that type of mentoring relationship is that you can develop the kind of rapport where the person can help you to see yourself more honestly, where you will be exposed to someone who can point out ways that you can grow, rather than just someone who's maybe giving you a pat on the back, which is important. Encouragement and support is extremely important, but you also want a mentor who can help to point out areas where you need to further develop. So again, going back to looking at someone whose area of expertise closely aligns with your area of expertise and reaching out to them, maybe establishing an appointment where you can talk further with them and provide them an opportunity to get to know you. This relationship is can be so integral to your success. You want to make sure that it is going to be a good match in terms of what you hope to gain intellectually, but a good match again in terms of how the two of you are able to talk, how you're able to connect, so that it feels like it is an opportunity for growth. And then the other that I mentioned in terms of a mentoring, where you're aligning yourself with someone who can help to hold a mirror to you and point out areas where you can further develop, not just someone who's going to say, great job, but someone who can really help you to look at the areas and the possibilities that you can further develop.
I think that is such great advice. To the rest of our panel, are there any qualities in, say, past mentor relationships you've either had as a mentor, mentee, that you think are any qualities that you think are important that have helped you throughout your career? Jolene, I suspect that, especially getting involved in NASW, that's really a great opportunity for students to kind of network again and find potential relationships. Is there anything that students should, you think that students should look for when connecting with potential mentors?
I like what Dr. Wiley was saying about honesty, essentially, like finding someone who's honest with you about your career and maybe choices that you're thinking of, someone who can give you sort of a reality check, or just can relay lived experience in the area for you to, follow their advice and use their input. I would say in finding a mentor, it's important to find someone who you really have a good like conversational relationship with, someone that you really, hit it off with. It's sort of like dating. Find someone who's a good match for you because this is a relationship where you will be conversing and you will be talking about tough things, tough choices, positives, negatives. So I would say, yeah, someone that you really click with.
Great, thank you. I want to transition a little bit to kind of looking at your future career. And Elita, have you had any experience, when looking, at your position? Have you any experience with a supervisor who didn't necessarily meet your expectations? If so, what did you successfully do to kind of manage that situation?
I've been very fortunate in the sense that because of my relationships and the networks that I built, I've been introduced to folks that are either knowledgeable about the field of social work or know the capacity and capabilities of a social worker. But I did have, at some point in time, a relationship with someone that did not understand how flexible and how to utilize a social worker, I guess. And so I had to restructure my mind to teach them about what we are able to do, that it's not just a box and it was not just clinical. Often this person would reference, oh, well, all you do is listen to people's problems, or, oh, well, all you could really do is, so it was very narrow. And so that person didn't last in the organization very long because, their views were very narrow across the board. But I was very flexible and I would let this person finish. And then I would just say, well, this is what I've done in the past. And then what I would try to do is I would think of how to translate social work terms or practice into the role that I was working with. And it was policy and just, I can do presentations, I can do this, I can do that. I think that also happened in my internship early on. In school settings, I think they prefer somebody with a teaching credential. And so they would always question like, well, what can a social worker do? Now we know that social workers are just key, crucial for student relations, to build school climate, to understand social emotional learning. So now it's different. But back then, those were some of the challenges I experienced. I couldn't predict that now there's such a, social workers in school settings are such a hot commodity for clinical and for meso and for all the work that we do. But I did try to be flexible and understanding of that so that I didn't burn any bridges, just because social work, like any field, if you're networking, you want to be able to say, yeah, I worked with that person. There were differences, but that's part of a professional social worker, being able to manage those discrepancies that you might face. In the end, I also exposed myself of psychiatric social work. And so it's very true what everybody's been saying. You don't know that you like something or that you're good at something until you try it. And then worst case scenario, you realize you really don't like it and you're not going to put yourself through something like that. I enjoyed working with the youth in the psychiatric unit. And so it was back to what I was doing in school settings, but it wasn't necessarily something I enjoyed when I was working with the adult population. So even in settings that are very clinical, when you try to talk about systems and you try to talk about policy, even within our field, you're going to encounter that conflict. So it's a good practice to start doing that in your practicum, within your class, within the discussions that you have at school. Just, express yourself and ask for help if you don't know how to professionally and respectfully address some of the concerns that you have with either a supervisor or a colleague.
Great, thanks, Elita. Michelle, do you have any kind of tips on how maybe how one might handle kind of a difficult situation like that?
I was just gonna say a difficult situation. I think we're all like, we all have faced, all of us that have been out in the field, we have all faced difficult situations. As social workers, you will all face a difficult situation. It's just a question of when and what does your difficult situation look like. I think, again, this is kind of like a combination of like, gosh, I wish I would have told my earlier self this ... and a combination of experience of maybe falling on my face throughout my career and getting up and kind of what do you do with it. I think first, my thought to y'all when dealing with a difficult situation is hit the pause button for a minute and take a breath, and just kind of think to yourself, okay, where am I and what is the situation? Like early in my career, I thought like I was in like a bad situation, didn't have a good supervisor because it just wasn't aligning to what I thought like my job or my role should be. And like people who had kind of been working a little bit longer than me just were very polite and encouraging and just kind of helped me do a little gauge check about like what are like my expectations versus what is like the reality of the job. So I think, those are a couple of things, but I mean, there are going to be some situations where you're going to be in a very hard, difficult situation. And that's when I would really encourage you all to like engage your peer group, connect with your mentor. And sometimes you're really going to have to lay all the cards out on the table. And some of your cards may be ugly, they're difficult to talk through, but get into a safe environment. And you may find yourself in a situation where you may have not made the best judgment call or mistakes have been made. I had and have had those many times. I think one thing is, how do you rebound from those difficult situations? Do you pick yourself up and say, okay, I want to learn from this, use this as a learning opportunity and plow ahead? Or do you kind of just sit there in that stalemate position? And you guys are here. I have a feeling you all are very much a go-getter group of folks. So I think and I hope you guys are more the former of how you pick yourself up and move forward. But again, we all face very difficult situations, but it's kind of how you pause, assess, and move forward. And if you feel like you don't have anybody to talk to, I'm going to throw myself out there. You all can connect with me anytime. I will chat with you. I'll tell you right now, as an MSW colleague, not as an official CDC person. But I do feel like that is one of many beauties of being part of a social work network, as you have many colleagues to call on.
Jolene, did you want to say something?
Yes, I wanted to stress that it is okay to extract yourself from a situation that may be too much for you. I think a lot of times as social workers, we want to do everything for everyone. We might feel guilt if something is not working out. If maybe a supervisor situation is just not working out, we try to push through. We try to, get advice and just get through it. But don't be afraid to actually take yourself out of it. I was in a role, it wasn't my clinical supervisor, but it was administration, and it was just not working out for me. And physically, my body knew it. I have shared this before. I had been trying to get pregnant for over a year, and I was in this role that I was unhappy with. I was feeling burned out. Someone mentioned burned out in the chat. And I just found that I needed to get out, and I ended up asking for a transfer, and I transferred to a new program. I just got out of the situation, transferred to a new program. There are a lot of opportunities for us as social workers to move on if we need to. I transferred, and by the time I actually got transferred, I was pregnant. So you see that really impacted me physically, and it will impact you physically if you're not taking care of yourself. So please do not be afraid to get out of a situation that is harmful to you, if you feel like that you need to get out for your own health, mental health and physical health.
I'll just jump and add one thing to Jolene, what she just said. I had an experience my first year. It was actually my first year practicum placement where I think I may have had a somewhat similar situation to Jolene's, but it wasn't registering with me that I was not in like the best situation, but it was people in my peer group in my practicum classes that were kind of sensing something was off because like I just was not in the best mood all the time. Anytime practicum days were coming up, they could just like, I was like, these triggers were going off. And they finally approached me and basically called me on the carpet in a very loving way. So my point is like, you may not know that something is happening, like a difficult situation is going on, but people around you can tell by what you're verbalizing, your nonverbal communication. So again, this is why your community is very important. So when people come to you, know that they're doing it out of love, because as a social worker, your overall well-being is just as important as the people that you are taking care of.
I'd like to add too, and I agree with Michelle, Elita, and Jolene, everything that they've said. I think there's another part for me. Having a difficult supervisor, I think as Michelle mentioned, we probably have all had that experience. And the reality is that sometimes we're just going to have these really tough situations. But as Elita pointed out, it's important to maintain your professionalism because the community can be small. So you don't want to burn bridges. You want to be able to, as we started talking earlier about networking, you want to be able to take advantage of the networking opportunities that exist. And if you've burnt bridges, that can impair that can impede that opportunity. So you want to be careful about that. The other thing, and I think this is difficult, and it's difficult for me, so I'm not suggesting anything that I haven't struggled with myself. And it's the idea of, again, being able to do that self-assessment. It's not to say that the supervisor is always right, but it's an opportunity for self-growth, to do the examination, to look at how am I approaching the situation? Are there ways in which I can communicate differently with this person? Can we sit down and have this an opportunity to discuss ways that maybe he or she sees in terms of how I could improve or not doing what the person is expecting? And then finally, as Jolene mentioned, you always have the opportunity to exit, but sometimes the most challenging situations can be the ones in which you grow. You go into another situation where you have someone whose personality might be challenging and you go, what, this is a piece of cake. I've dealt with a lot more difficult people than you. I can do this. So you have to keep that in mind too. And then here's one other little pointer that I'd like to share. Sometimes it's not about you. We have a tendency to personalize it, but if we step back and look at how that person might interact with some other people, and unbeknownst to that supervisor, we're observing, but we can see how that person interacts with someone else in that same possibly negative, how we perceive it as being negative, we realize that it's not about us. It's really about that individual and how they interact with a lot of people. And that's not to excuse it. It's just to allow you that opportunity to look at yourself again and say, well, it's not about me. This person has areas that they could certainly improve, and they haven't done that.
That is excellent advice, Dr. Wiley. Naomi had a question, and I'm just going to throw it out to whoever would like to answer. But how do you handle moments of burnout and compassion fatigue? Anybody?
I'll speak to that with the pandemic. I felt heartbroken. I think I used the word heartbroken a lot of times when I was talking to colleagues, when I was going out, finding out that kids were living in sheds, or they didn't have anything to eat, or they were sleeping in their cars with the pandemic. I'm a mother of two, and so it's so difficult not to internalize something when you see it. And it's so raw and it's so difficult, and you just realize how fortunate you are. But I had to call it out, and I had to say how hard it was on me to go do those visits and to collaborate. And I reached out to a fellow social worker, and so we turned it into a positive. Once we found the students, what were we doing? But I knew I was not in the best place when I was thinking of all the students that I couldn't find. And so I wanted to save the world. And so those, you have to really look at red flags when it's burnout, when it's compassion fatigue. For me, it was compassion fatigue, and I just couldn't get, I had already given it all within my role and within my ethical boundaries. And I still wanted to put myself out there more, risking myself, risking my family. And so I took a moment and I stepped back into what made me happy, what made me feel recharged. And so I took some time off. It only took a week for me to feel rested, to feel hydrated, to feel emotionally connected to those that I loved. And I basically said, there's a huge problem. And when I came out and said that within our organization, they actually hired 2 more people to help us. And they realized this cannot happen. If we have people feeling like this, they're going to quit. They're going to overextend themselves. And one way that I was able to cope with it was doing physical activity. I would go on walks that led to runs. And so physically I was feeling good, but the negative energy that I was feeling, I was actually draining it, and coming back home, that helped me. So you have to find what makes you feel like yourself. In any moment you're overextending yourself, that could be a red flag. Look for the red flags, I would say.
Thank you, Linda. Any other comments on burnout or compassion fatigue? No? Okay. If anybody has any questions, please put it in the chat, or feel free to raise your hand and come on camera. You can unmute yourself. We'd love to hear from you. Anybody brave enough? No?
I just want to mention, I do see Natasha's question about loan forgiveness, and we actually have another session completely focused on financial literacy and loan forgiveness. There are programs that are available, and we're hoping to have a good couple of experts to be able to address that later on in the season. So be on the lookout for that.
Perfect transition, Dr. Watson. Yes, and actually the compassion fatigue and self-care is a great transition to our next on October 13th. So like Dr. Watson said earlier, we do these once a month, and that will be all on self-care and time management, which, as you can see from our audience or from our panelists today, those are very important things for you to take care of. Make sure you're taking care of yourself so that you can take care of your clients and the communities that you're serving. I do want to be respectful of everyone's time. So I'd love to have each panelist just kind of give us one last piece of advice, comment, kind of anything that you want our students to kind of walk away with. And I'll start with Professor Wiley.
I'd say honor your commitment to what you're doing right now, but also think big, because your MSW, I think it was Elita or maybe Michelle, and I'm sure Jolene would agree too. The field is so multifaceted that while you have your ideas set right now, don't limit yourself, because social workers can be found in a variety of employment settings. And so when you think about your dreams, think also about what you can do to catapult yourself to the top of whatever it is that you want to achieve. Don't limit yourself. Don't limit yourself. So dream big, dream about what you're able to do for yourself, but dream big about what you can do in terms of the communities and the individuals that you want to serve, and the variety of settings that you can do that in.
Great, thank you. Michelle?
Okay, two things come to mind. The first is, there's that saying when you're on an airplane, please put your own oxygen mask on first before you assist others. So that is my way of telling you all, please take care of yourselves. And that's going to really help you take care of all the people, regardless of what concentration you are in, that you want to help. And like Dr. Wiley said, I'm going to tell you and charge you that yes, you can change the world in any and every capacity that you set forth off and do, even during your time at SC. And I am just really excited to know that there are a whole new batch of future MSWs 2,700 miles away from me right now.
Thank you. Elita?
I think for me, for students, I would say ask questions and get involved early. Make the time to check those organizations, check the things that the school has to offer. They have so much to offer and it's worthwhile. You will build relationships as a student, but you will build networks within your classmates. You don't know who you're going to be working with. I have seen so many fellow Trojans in roles that I hadn't seen since I was a student. So build those relationships and get involved.
Great. Jolene?
Yes, I would say to live in the moment. I know you're all thinking about changing the world, which yes, you all will. You're thinking about those career goals and you will meet them, but don't forget to live in the moment and experience, because that's what you're there for. You're there to learn and experience. So practice that mindfulness, live moment to moment, and get through it that way. Enjoy your program because it's going to go by really fast and you're going to be in the working world so soon. So enjoy.
Thank you so much. Both Michelle and Elita are on Dworak-Peck Connect. So for those of you guys who don't know what Dworak-Peck Connect, I call it the LinkedIn of USC social work and nursing. And that's where we have alumni like Michelle and Elita and Jolene. I'd love to have you on. We do have a community and friends tab as well, where you can connect, you can message, you can look at their profile and see, this is, something very interesting about Elita's profile, and send Elita a message. I believe Elita put also in her email address as well. So if you do want to connect, and Jolene put hers as well. But I encourage you to, if you want to find alums like Michelle, like Elita, hit up Dworak-Peck Connect. Most of the folks that we're bringing on, they're on DPC. And use that Trojan family network, build it out, send messages, connect with me. I'll help connect you with alumni, especially if you're interested in a specific area. I will help you find that. I want to make sure you're connecting with as many folks as possible. I'm going to plug our event again every month, about the middle of the month on Wednesdays. Evenings, we're going to bring to you topics like self-care and time management, professionalism, financial literacy, where we can cover these topics for you. Licensing, that's going to be a big one. I think that's probably 2 sessions worth. Networking, professionalism, resume writing, LinkedIn. So we've got a great series planned out to you by Student Affairs and Alumni Relations, because we're all Trojans, and even honorary Trojans, Jolene. And we're all here to support you on your journey. It's the big 360 of your journey, because while you might not be an alum yet, you will be someday. And so we do want to help you as future social workers, as future colleagues, help you along on your journey. So definitely, if you don't have a Dworak-Peck Connect, Dworak-Peck Connect account, make sure you sign up. I'll put it in the chat. And you can sign up with your USC Net ID and you'll be automatically approved as a student. But I do know we had one final question, but I don't know if we'll have time for it.
Hi, I'm sorry to interrupt real quick,
no.
but what did you say you were going to send the link for us to sign up?
Yeah, Dworak-Peck Connect. So it's like LinkedIn, but for specific to social workers. And I'll put it in right now.
Oh, awesome.
And you can also sign up for the USC's version of it at the same time, but do social work first, and then I'll walk you through how to do the universities. But it's a great way for you to connect with social workers within the Trojan community. So we're a group of about 3,000 plus strong students and alums, and it's growing every single day. And you just connect. So without further ado, I do want to be respectful of everyone's night. So, and I know Michelle is on the East Coast, so thank you, Michelle, for staying up late with us. And I know Jolene's got class. So thank you, Dr. Wiley. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Elita. Thank you, Jolene. And thank you, Dr. Watson, for partnering with me on this series. And we look forward to coming back in a month and meeting a brand new group of alums and another faculty member to talk to you a little bit about time management and self-care on October 13th. So save the date. We'll send out registration info later. But thank you so much for spending your evening with us. And as always, guys, fight on. Bye now.